Hi, I'm Wayne and this is Bassador Woodworking. Today I made these 3 different stomp boxes using the cheapest piezo pickups I could find on Amazon. The goal of this project is to create acoustic stomp boxes for my friend Kevin. I don't know the actual inner workings of stomp boxes, but when Kevin and I were talking, we assumed that it must be using some kind of piezo pickup, but we weren't sure which kind would be the best to adapt to this. So I just bought the 3 kinds I could find and decided it's not a very involved project. I'll build one of each and we'll see which one works best. These 3 stomp boxes use 3 different types of piezo pickups. They're just the 3 cheapest sets that I could find on Amazon. This one uses an array of 3 pickups with just an input. This one uses an under the saddle piezo pickup that has the full bass treble adjustment. This is an active pickups setup. This one uses just one large piezo pickup, but it has its own volume, passive volume control.
This project is going to utilize mostly scrap wood and cutoffs from other projects. So I began by setting up my jointing jig on the table saw and cutting a straight edge into a maple panel I had left over from an acoustic guitar build. I then cut the panels into 3 equal pieces at the radial arm saw. These will be the tops of the stomp boxes. The radial arm saw excels at repetitive processes like this. With the tops cut, I then move back over to the table saw to cut the sides and bottoms of the stomp boxes. These are just cut from plywood leftovers. The sides are 3/4 inch plywood, while the bottom is 1/2 inch. And back to the radial arm saw to cut the sides and bottom to length. I'm making these stomp boxes larger than they really need to be. Once these 3 are complete and Kevin has decided on which set of pickups he likes best, I'll make a new one out of hardwood that will be sized to fit the pickups more efficiently, which will greatly reduce the size of the box so that it's easier to gig with. The tops of the stomp boxes need to sit at a slight angle to make them more comfortable under the foot, so I threw together a quick tapering jig to cut the angle into the sides.
Once these are all together, it will be a little bit harder to tell them apart. They're all very different. So this one only has an input jack, this one has a volume and an input jack, and then this one is unmistakable from any of the others. But also to add a little bit of individuality to each one will have caps that are made of walnut, one will have caps made of purple hearts, and one will have caps made of oak. And the tops on all 3 will be maple, and then plywood sides. I wanted these to be just boxes, that way hopefully they'll reverberate a little bit when you stomp on them. I might need to shave down the sides on the inside and everything to make more of a chamber, but we'll find out.
With the sides and bottoms cut, I could then partially assemble the first box. I want these stomp boxes to be serviceable, so the tops and sides will be glued in place, but the bottom will be held on with screws so that it can be reopened if need be. The first box will only need one hole for the output jack, so I drilled a 3/8 inch hole roughly in the center of the back panel. I repeated the entire process again for the second box, this time drilling 2 holes in the back panel for the volume knob and the output jack. With the glue drying on the second, I could turn my attention back to the first box. I applied the pickups to the top and glued it into place, securing it with a couple of pin nails. There was not really a rhyme or reason to the orientation of the pickups, I just kind of put them in a rough triangle. I then glued on the oak front panel. The oak I had was not wide enough to do the back panel, so I used some scrap maple instead. I used the treadmill sander to do a quick cleanup on all sides of the box. This was the first real project I have used the sander on, and I was thoroughly impressed with its performance. It runs really quietly, and it has a surprisingly gentle touch for a sander of its size.
Alright, I have one box assembled. I still have to do all the finishing on it. It works. It does make percussive noise when you plug it into an amp, so that's cool. I'll put a whole clip of each one with sound comparisons between the 3 after this, once they're all assembled and everything. But I'm really happy that, at least as a proof of concept, this one works, which makes me believe wholeheartedly that the other 2 will as well. I have the final graphic being laser engraved now, so I can now assemble the second one, and then that is the 2 easy ones assembled and ready for finishing. I then need to figure out how I'm going to set up the under saddle piezo. That one's going to be more difficult, and I haven't quite cracked how I'm going to do it yet.
It should go pretty high up in the center on this. Basically right under the tiger's head. At least that's my thought.
I used the radial arm saw to square off the end of each box. That way the front panel has a nice flat surface to glue to. Now we get to the process of cutting the controller hole for box 3. This process was one failure after another. I first tried to use the scroll saw, which is the tool that I would normally opt for when cutting an inside shape, but I broke the blade rather quickly and found out that I don't have any spares and will need to order some. So then I turned to the oscillating multi-tool, but that was too rough and it split the grain. I then remembered that I'm stupid and that I own a laser cutter. So I used that on the new piece of Purple Heart, and it was very easy, very quick, and it turned out great.
Okay, so I completely missed filming this, but I just used a router with an edge guide and routed a slot. I'm now going to drill a hole here so that the piezo has a place to nest through. And then that will be basically it. I'll then have to figure out how to cover that piezo so that it's actually like doing something. Now this. There we go. And that's mounted. So then I'm just going to put maybe a stripe of some other hardwood there, just so that there's something pressed against that. Maybe I have a small piece of brass or something that'll look nice.
The back panel of box 3 is too small to accommodate both the controller and the output jack, so I had to move the output to the side, which meant I needed to counterbore a recess for the jack to sit in before drilling through with a 3/8 inch bit. With box 3 assembled, I turned my attention to covering the undersaddle pickup. I just grabbed a scrap piece of walnut for this. With all 3 boxes assembled, I sanded them all to 220 grit and then applied a few thin coats of polyurethane and then sanded to 400 grit to give myself a nice smooth finish.
To recap, this is the most basic of the 3. This one is just an array of 3 stick-on piezo pickups with an output. It's as basic as it can be, and I think it works very well. It was also one of the cheapest sets of pickups to go into one of these. I'll make sure there's links to all of the things down in the description, but this one we'll call number 1. We'll call this one number 2. This is the one with one large piezo stick-on pickup, and this one has its own passive volume control. And this one also, I was surprised at how well it works, especially in comparison to the first one. There's not a huge difference between the functionality of this one and number 1, but I think that this one has more bass to it just naturally. So I think Kevin might like this one more than the first one. And this is the third one. This one is, in my estimation, the best of the 3. It's also, this one happens to be my favorite of the 3. It has the full acoustic electric setup in it with the under the saddle piezo pickup, and it's just seems very versatile just in the few minutes I've been using it. It has its own adjustment built in, and this is also not an expensive setup for this. So I think this pickup, I believe, was like $12 with the control and everything. So that's kind of hard to beat, especially when all these acoustic Stomp boxes are like minimum $70 to $120. I think if you can even get passable functionality out of one of these, I think it's definitely worth looking into. They still all need to go to my friend Kevin, and he'll decide which one is the best and which one he wants to use. At that point, I'll make a nicer version of it to send him. But thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to keep up to date with new projects as they are released. And until next time, thank you.